to empower his negotiators to conclude a deal without delay to bring the hostages. The president emphasized that the strikes on humanitarian workers and the overall humanitarian situation in Gaza are unacceptable. Decisions that haven't been made yet, but there are things that need to be done. There are too many.
Joe Biden has urged for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, emphasizing to Benjamin Netanyahu that future U.S. backing for Israel hinges on tangible steps taken to safeguard civilians and humanitarian workers. During their first phone conversation since Israeli airstrikes resulted in the deaths of 7 staff members of the international food charity World Central Kitchen, WCK, Biden expressed the sternest criticism from the U.S. toward Israel since the conflict's onset. In their brief call on Thursday, lasting less than 30 minutes, the U.S. president underscored the necessity for Israel to declare and enact a series of specific, measurable actions to address civilian casualties, humanitarian distress, and the security of aid workers, as stated by the White House. He underscored that U.S. policy toward Gaza will be influenced by our evaluation of Israel's immediate response to these measures. Biden emphasized the urgency of an immediate ceasefire and encouraged Israel to swiftly negotiate with Hamas, according to the White House. This statement marked a notable shift in Biden's stance and suggested, for the first time, potential conditions on continued U.S. support. The call coincided with WCK's appeal to Australia, Canada, Poland, the U.S., and the U.K., whose nationals were among those killed in the attack, to participate in an independent inquiry into the incident. This was a military assault involving multiple strikes that targeted 3 WCK vehicles, the charity stated. All 3 vehicles were transporting civilians, marked as WCK vehicles, and their movements were fully compliant with Israeli authorities, who were informed of their itinerary, route, and humanitarian mission. An independent investigation is essential to ascertain the truth, ensure transparency and accountability for those responsible, and prevent future assaults on humanitarian aid workers. Biden's remarks were echoed by Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who warned that U.S. support could diminish if Israel failed to modify its behavior. If we don't see the necessary changes, there will be adjustments to our policy, Blinken informed reporters in Brussels. At present, protecting civilians, escalating humanitarian aid, and ensuring the safety of those providing assistance are top priorities in Gaza. Israel must rise to this occasion, he emphasized. The U.S. has been a pivotal provider of military aid and diplomatic backing for Israel's nearly 6-month offensive, launched in response to Hamas's October 7 attack in southern Israel. Support for Israel's right to self-defense has been a cornerstone of U.S. foreign policy for over half a century, with no prior indication that the U.S. was prepared to condition, let alone withhold, military assistance. The State Department recently sanctioned the transfer of 1,884 Malawian kwaches, 2,000 pounds, 907 kilograms, bombs to Israel, with the decision reportedly coinciding with the day of the WCK strike. John Kirby, spokesperson for the National Security Council, reaffirmed on Thursday that U.S. support for Israel's defense remains rock solid. However, earlier in the day, a key Biden ally called on the president to leverage the aid provided. "I believe we have reached that juncture," said Chris Coons, a Democratic senator from Biden's home state of Delaware, in an interview with CNN. Coons indicated that if Israel were to commence a long-anticipated offensive in the southern city of Rafah without plans for the 1.5 million inhabitants taking shelter there, I would vote to condition aid to Israel. Biden's comments added to a chorus of international condemnation over the attack on the WCK team, which was distributing urgently needed food to a population on the brink of famine. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese criticized Israel's explanation for the deaths as unsatisfactory, while a diplomatic standoff erupted between Poland and Israel after Israel's ambassador to Poland, Yakov Livna, rebuffed what he described as attempts by elements of the extreme right and left in Poland to accuse Israel of intentional murder. Polish President Andrzej Duda condemned Livna's comments as outrageous, calling the ambassador the biggest obstacle to Israel's relations with Poland. The Polish Foreign Ministry summoned Livna for a meeting on Friday morning. Israel stated on Thursday that its military investigation into the deaths of the 7 aid workers could take weeks, while Shimon Friedman, spokesperson for Kogat, the arm of the Israeli military responsible for civilian affairs in the Palestinian territories, informed the BBC that they hope for the investigation to report in the next few days. IDF Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi attributed the strike to misidentification, stating that it was not carried out with the intent to harm WCK aid workers and was a regrettable mistake. The IDF announced on Thursday that it had suspended leave for all combat units and raised its air defense readiness in anticipation of a potential missile or drone attack from Iran. There is apprehension in Israel regarding Tehran's response to the deaths of 2 Iranian generals and 5 military advisors in an Israeli airstrike on an Iranian diplomatic compound in Damascus earlier in the week. Netanyahu has faced mounting domestic pressure from the families and supporters of hostages still detained in Gaza, as well as from a resurgent anti-government protest movement. On Wednesday, Benny Gantz, a political rival of Netanyahu and a member of the war cabinet, called for early parliamentary elections in September. "We must agree on a mutually acceptable date for September, or if preferred, the first anniversary of the conflict," Gantz declared. While Netanyahu's Likud party rejected the proposal, it found support from U.S. Senate Leader Chuck Schumer, who previously urged new elections, sharply criticizing Netanyahu's handling of the crisis. When a prominent member of Israel's war cabinet calls for early elections and over 70% of the Israeli public concurs according to a significant poll, you know it's the right move, Schumer tweeted. Early elections necessitate the agreement of 61 elected officials or a majority of deputies in the Knesset, where Likud holds the most seats but lacks a majority. Likud argued that holding national elections during a period of conflict would inevitably lead to paralysis and undermine the military's efforts in Gaza. Meanwhile, Hamas official Osama Hamdan reported no progress in ceasefire negotiations in Gaza, despite the Palestinian group demonstrating flexibility. According to medical officials in Gaza, over 33,000 Palestinians have been killed in the conflict, with Hamas claiming 6,000 of its fighters among the fatalities. Israeli officials contend that the death toll among Palestinian combatants is more than double that number. Thanks for watching. Visit our website headlinecast.com and please subscribe our YouTube channel, hit the bell icon for update news. Also follow our Facebook page, Instagram, and Twitter.